It's not very often I do 2 news of the week video in the same week unless this is the off season, but since this week is the international break and this is one of the rarest weeks where we don't actually have any MLS game that is taking place this weekend because of the international break, I'm going to act this like kind of like a mini off season, and I'm going to actually do a second news of the week video because there was definitely some news that is worthy to talk about in the news of the week episode, and probably the biggest news coming out these last couple of days from MLS is the update in terms of when exactly the season is going to start next year. And I talked about how there could be a possibility that the season could start on time because of the fact that just like the MLB and presumably the NFL, they're probably going to finish the season on time, and in the case of MLS, they're going to finish the season in December, which normally that is usually when the season basically finish, except for last year when they decided to kind of condense the schedule and decided to finish 1 month earlier. But yeah, there is definitely a possibility that the schedule could start on time because of that. Well, they have also just given an update that that is exactly what they're thinking about, and that they are going to try to start the season on time and in early March, as it has been for the past couple of years. Now, there are definitely some factors and some conflict that could potentially push back the schedule, and one of the biggest conflict is the fact that teams, they don't want to kind of start the season early or start next season where they're going to once again go into the similar situation we're in right now, which is teams going to either have to have limited capacity of fans in the stands or no capacity whatsoever, and pretty much play behind closed door. And we know for a fact that when you do that pretty much throughout the entire season, or in some case, some of these teams probably did it for half of the season where they had no fans in the stands whatsoever, they're going to lose those match day revenue. And that teams are worried that heading into next season, they're going to deal with the same issue and they're going to lose even more money. So that's why teams are looking to try to push back a little bit, thinking that maybe there's going to be a vaccine that is going to come place. And once that vaccine does happen, teams might start figure out moving into the next year, which is kind of go with half capacity before eventually back to normalcy and back to kind of full capacity, so that they can make up all those lost revenue that they lost for the past couple of seasons. But the other conflict besides that is the fact that, are we going to go with another regional scheduling? From what I heard is that we look like we're going to go with another regional scheduling, which means that teams are only going to be playing against team that is based on the region, which, from this season, it does sucks. The fact that we only get to play a team that is based on our region, especially how that just really caused, MLS has already have an unbalanced schedule. The regional schedule just makes it even more unbalanced with the way that you get to play against the team that is based on your region like 3 or 4 times, and that team could either be a very easy team and you can basically use them to grab free points, or that could be a team that is either the defending MLS Cup champion or a team that is regularly made it into the playoffs. So yeah, there's definitely some unfairness in terms of going with regional schedule, and that the league is really hoping the fact that they don't have to do that heading into next season. But from what I heard, that looks like what they are going to potentially do. And the third thing that is going to be a factor in terms of the schedule potentially not start on time is what's going to happen with the Canadian team. So we know the Canadian team this season, at least for phase 2 and for the rest of the season, they did not play in their home market. The Whitecaps, of course, play at Portland and at Providence Park. Montreal, of course, play at Red Bull Arena, and also TFC play in Hartford. So is that going to be the same case again this year? Like, I don't know what exactly the Canadian government is going to do in the future. Obviously, right now, they are not allowing anybody to cross their borders, and they have a big restriction in terms of people, and even players, if they want to cross the border, they have to go back to their hometown and self-isolate for 14 days, which that just does not work for these Canadian teams. So are we going to see something similar to that? And if that's the case, do these Canadian teams want this, because I have a feeling some of them don't want this because of the fact that, you know, they basically have already spent almost the entire season away from their home. They don't want to do it for the entire season again, and it just kind of feels weird, the fact that that, of course, is the case. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of factors in terms of whether or not if the season is going to start, and there's definitely some conflict, but we'll see. As we get into this off season, we will see what the announcement is going to be, and once the announcement does drop, I, of course, will make a video about that. Now, DC United have contacted David Wagner and Eddie Howe as their next head coach in these past couple of days, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this when I do the moving forward series for DC United, which I'm actually going to do it right after this video. But yeah, this is kind of interesting as they decided to kind of contact some of those head coaches in Europe, although I have also heard that both of these head coaches had no intention of course going to MLS, and they look to pursue another coaching opportunity in Europe, which is not a big surprise because, you know, David Wagner was probably the name that's been linked for a bit of the fact that maybe he could be coming to MLS, and I think I talked about how if he does come to MLS, which head or which teams that he could potentially head coach when he comes to MLS. But as for Eddie Howe, yeah, I just don't see it happen, knowing the fact that I don't think he's going to be one of those English head coach that's going to be making the move to MLS, and that I think he's going to either get another job either in the Championship or in the Prem or even in League One or even elsewhere in Europe. And that, yeah, most likely DC, you know, they try their best in terms of trying to maybe hire some well-known name, but most likely they're going to stuck with those four candidates that they have just mentioned the previous day, and one of them potentially is going to be the next head coach for DC United. Now, Christian Pavone, he says that he is still undecided on his future with the LA Galaxy, and this is going to be also something that I'm going to follow closely as we get into the offseason, because there is definitely some uncertainty right now with the Galaxy, and knowing that this offseason is a pretty big offseason where they're going to have a lot of squad overhaul and maybe even front office overhaul that they have to do in the offseason. The biggest question that they are going to go into this offseason is what are they going to do with some of their biggest name. I mean, not only the fact that there's still question whether or not if Chicharito is actually staying with the Galaxy, but obviously the Pavone situation, and this has been a situation that's been gone on even when the season, of course, began. But now as we head to the offseason, and knowing the last offer that Boca Junior basically they told the Galaxy that they're not going to sell him for at least for $10 to $20 million, or LA Galaxy can only buy him if they, of course, give $10 to $20 million to Boca Junior. That is definitely a very steep price to try to get Christian Pavone, and especially if there's some other areas that the Galaxy clearly need to fix. You know, that I don't think it's kind of worth that amount of money to try to get him, but we'll see. This is going to be something that is going to be continue into the off season, and we shall see whether or not if Pavone is going to be coming back to the Galaxy next season, or is he going to be going back to Boca Junior heading into next year. Now, we already have some signings that have done in terms of these teams that have been eliminated and that technically they're into their off season. And the first big signings that we have seen in this offseason, well, I wouldn't say it's a big signing, but the Chicago Fire has signed Nigerian forward Chinoso Ofer. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And he used to play in Latvia and in the first division, and quite frankly, I have actually never heard of this guy. But I guess this is probably a signing for the Chicago Fire to make in order to replace CJ Sapon that they basically said in their end of the season roster move that they are not going to bring back CJ Sapon. So we'll see whether or not if he is any good whatsoever. Again, I don't really have a lot of detail with this guy, and especially when teams does sign with somebody from a random league, that does make me a little bit concerned for that team, knowing the fact that there is a lot lot of randomness of whether or not if that player is actually good or not, but we shall see whether or not if that is going to be the plays, or whether or not if he's going to get some game time for the team, because no doubt that Chicago Fire is going to be sticking with Robert Beric, and he's obviously their main striker, but we shall see if Ofer is going to get some game time when he comes to the Chicago Fire. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, and remember how I talked about how I was going to do a video where I'm going to do kind of talk about all the players that of course won awards at the year-end awards in MLS. Well, I changed my mind because it seemed like MLS is basically awarding these awards kind of in different timeline, and I don't kind of want to wait until the time when they award every single year-end awards and kind of do a single video. So instead, I'm just going to mention it in the news of the week video. For comeback player of the year, Lucas Zarian basically is the winner of this. Oh no, not comeback player of the year. Okay, that's a mistake right there. It's actually the newcomer player of the year, and this pen is just garbage. Yeah, the newcomer player of the year is going to be Lucas Zarian, and I bet probably, since I'm now 11 minutes into this video, somebody's probably in the comments section saying, how did Lucas Zarian win comeback player of the year when he wasn't even in MLS last season? But instead, he actually won the newcomer player of the year, and there was definitely some good nomination with the fact that he was going up against Alan Pulido and Robert Beric for the newcomer player of the year. And, you know, in my opinion, I feel like Robert Beric probably could have won this award, and that maybe the only reason why he didn't win this award is because the Chicago Fire did not make it to the playoffs. Had the Chicago Fire made it to the playoffs, I think Beric would have won this award, because, you know, Beric, he has been a guy that has played the most minute out of those three players, and he has equally as big as an impact for the Chicago Fire as what Lucas Zarian does have with the Columbus Crew and Alan Pulido with Sporting KC. But I guess the reason why he didn't win it, as I said, Chicago Fire did not make it to the playoffs. The Columbus Crew did, so they think that the team that of course made the playoffs and the players that is part of that team that make the playoffs has a bigger impact, and why he of course won newcomer player of the year. Now, for the real comeback player of the year goes to Bradley Wright Phillips, who of course won this award. And this is kind of an interesting one because, you know, I understand that BWP has been having an incredible season with LAFC, and that definitely does leave a lot of question mark of why in the world did the Red Bulls thought about decide to get rid of him, even though I know he has started to kind of getting into that age where a lot of strikers does have their legs kind of falling off a little bit. But this year he's been proven he could still be an incredible goal scorer, as he's been doing throughout his entire career in MLS. But, you know, there was also some notable nominees that I think could have won the comeback player of the year. Milton Valenzuela is one of them that was nominated as the finalist, and, you know, that's kind of an interesting one because, I mean, he was decent this season, but there was really nothing that kind of tells me the fact that he could have been one of the finalists at that award. The real player that I probably think could have won this award is Kevin Molino, because I think Kevin Molino, what he has been dealing with and coming back from this year where he actually had a career high of goal scoring with 8 goals this season, and how throughout this season I thought Molino is one of those players that has made a huge impact and become that goal scorer that the Loons desperately need going up front. I thought he could have probably won the comeback player of the year, but I guess maybe the reason why BWP won it is because of a bigger name, and that when you are a bigger name in MLS and you're nominated for a year-end award, most likely you're going to win it just because of that. And keep in mind, these Player of the Year award, I don't think fans actually vote these award. I think players and also also all these other people that is involved in MLS does vote for these awards. So yeah, I think maybe because of the fact that BWP is more known to a lot of these players and also people that's involved in MLS, that's why he of course won Comeback Player of the Year. Now moving on, in terms of the last two news, I want to first kind of talk about highest selling MLS jersey, and I kind of want to bring it up that the top 3 highest selling MLS jersey was Carlos Vela, Chicharito, and Joseph Martinez, which isn't a really big surprise because these are 3 well-known players in MLS. But the other thing I kind of want to bring up is the fact that, you know, people ask me with all these jerseys that I buy, and that do I actually buy jerseys that actually have players' name at the back? And my answer to that is no. I don't actually buy jerseys with players' name back, and I usually never do that for a very good reason. One of the reason is that they're more expensive than when you just buy a jersey with no player's name at the back. And the second main reason is that when I do that, you know, I'm hoping that that player that I bought the jersey that have the name at the back of my jersey is not going to be leaving with another club in quick succession, because that's always kind of one of the risks that you have to take with the fact that, you know, if you're gonna buy a Chicharito, Carlos Vela, or Joseph Martinez, or I would use Chicharito as a good example, where, you know, since he is one of the players that I earlier mentioned that has uncertainty with his future with the Galaxy. Well, what if he's not there next season? So if he's not there next season, that jersey will kind of be a little bit irrelevant, and that I see a lot of people usually when they do buy players jersey, they only wear it when the players is with that team. But if he goes to another team, they basically just stop wearing it, because that's just, there's kind of an unwritten rule where you don't wear a jersey with the player's name at the back, that player basically is no longer playing with your team, or he's playing with another team in MLS. So that's kind of the 2 main reasons why I don't really buy jersey. But hey, you know, let me know in the comments below, do you of course do that and buy players or buy jerseys that have players' name at the back? And, you know, if that is the case, tell me also what happened when those players does no longer with your team. Do you just kind of still have the jersey, or you just kind of throw it in the trash? But finally, in terms of the last news of the week, is something that I kind of already mentioned yesterday, but I'm just gonna bring it up again just for people that did not watch my video talk about the Houston Dynamo moving forward. And that is, of course, they're going to be setting to unveil their new identity on Tuesday, and that most likely they're going to unveil their new logo, which, again, I already see kind of a leak image of that logo, and I thought it was a decent kind of logo if it was the fact that the Dynamo is a baseball team. But we shall see whether or not if that is actually the same logo, because, again, that was just some leak image, and that we also don't exactly know if the Dynamo is going to be sticking with the same color. I really hope that is the case, because I really love the orange color for the Houston Dynamo, and orange is one of the most unique, and that I think they're the only team in MLS that have a primary orange kind of color. No, FC Cincinnati, I know you're probably going to say that, what about us? We also have orange in our jersey. Well, notice how I say primary color. FC Cincinnati, they also have a blue as one of their primary color, and they're kind of like blue and orange. But the Dynamo is the only team that has a primary color that is orange, and that they wear all orange jersey throughout their entire existence. And that I really hope that is something that we're not going to not see when they decide to unveil their new identity heading into Tuesday. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the news of the week. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all these news? And as always, if there's any news that I didn't mention on the sport, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy this video, and I will see you guys next time.